Greetings, everyone. This is Phil Amerson again with the To Be and Do podcast. And we've had so many good folks to interview, but one who's especially I look forward to, one who I've known for, well, more years than I can believe, is Tom Heaton. And Tom, well, what do you say about Tom? He's served several congregations in Indiana for over 30 years. He worked in missions and justice ministries, not only as a pastor, but in the conference staff. And then he is the founder of Mission Guatemala. And many people know about that nonprofit ministry that works in rural communities in Guatemala, healthcare, education, community development. And those years were deeply shaping to Tom. So I'm not going to talk a lot more. He's a good man. We're talking with him today. I'm in Bloomington and Tom's in Evansville. Both are favorite cities of mine. So welcome, Tom. It's good to visit with you today.
Good to be here. Good to see you as well.
So, what's going on down along the river?
Well, it's been raining a lot, but it seems like you always talk about the weather when you answer that question. But raining a lot, but finally a little bit sunny today, so we get to chat together on a sunny day.
Good, good. Well, I think Evansville's changed a lot since I lived there in the 1980s, but a lot of good things are happening as I read the papers and see what's going on.
Oh, for sure. Uh, it's really probably the past 15 years or so, just a lot of new development, a lot of changes. Some things succeed, some things fail, but, the city continues to move ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a great city, and a lot of good things go on there. How long have you lived in Evansville this time? I know you were.
There's an old joke about Evansville, Phil, and that is like, once you live here and move away, you almost always end up coming back.
Yeah.
And so, gosh, I've probably I don't do good job of keeping track of years, but Evansville's probably been what I've called home the past 20 years.
Wow.
Easily whenever and I kinda count that time, my US home, that time when I was in Guatemala, we had a condo here in Evansville, so whenever I came back home, it was always to Evansville. So I've served churches not necessarily directly in Evansville, but in the Evansville area, Mount Vernon and all that. So this has kinda been a home base for me for a long time.
Yeah, and you're a graduate of the university there.
Graduated in 1982, University of Evansville, Bachelor of Science in Communications, and, worked in business for a while before and ended up going into ministry.
Well, I know enough that I'll get in trouble if I say much more, but I know that you've been friends with, city leaders and people in, governmental and finance community, and I just thank you for being there and helping make that city a vibrant place.
Well, I'm not as active here as I used to be. It's time for other people to kinda step up and do some of that, but, I'm happy with the work I've, done here in the past, and, I'm proud to support those who continue to try to carry good work forward.
Well, we're gonna talk about a couple of things at least, in our interviews, and you've already introduced one, or well, I introduced it, now you have. Let's talk about Mission Guatemala. How on earth did that develop, Tom Heaton?
Uh, I always say, "Do you want the honest story or me to kind of, dance around it?" I I In some ways, Mission Guatemala started with my total frustration of dealing with difficult people in the local church. Uh, which I know it's gonna be hard for people to believe that sometimes there are difficult people in the local church, but, there was a day that people came to me complaining about children leaving scuff marks on the Family Life Center floor,
Tragic,
and
tragic.
I sat back and thought, I know children that don't have shoes.
Yeah.
That's a crisis. Scuff marks on the floor, are not a crisis. I have 2 sons, that have since passed away, but I adopted from Guatemala, and so that started, the connection, with that country, and as I traveled there, I continued just to kind of see the great need, and, there's a great there's a great Lily Tomlin quote. Lily Tomlin said, "I used to say somebody should do something about that, and then I realized I was somebody."
Yeah.
And so, I thought, if I wanna if I wanna do something about it, then I've gotta kinda step up and try to make the difference. So, I that's, I'm not sure you can point to any, like, one thing that kinda got me there and got me going, but it was just a whole series of things and life situations and processes and, just finally realizing, you either talk about it or you do something about it, and
Well,
so I
you've made a remarkable difference. My, the people who have been a part of that and who've had life-changing experiences, I if I started naming them, there would be a story or 10 with each one.
well, September 1, this coming September 1st will be the 16th anniversary,
Wow.
of that ministry there, and I'm not actively involved in it anymore, although I'm actually gonna be traveling back to Guatemala in a couple of weeks, for a little while, and I will, be there on site, but, I generally know what's going on, and I get asked from time to time for some guidance and wisdom on on situations there, largely because the current young man directing the organization now, Dave Burns. Dave and I started the organization together, and so sometimes it's just easier to say, "Remember 13 years ago when this happened," rather than try to
Yeah.
rehash it with someone that doesn't know. But it's, yeah, 16 years. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of mission team members, have served, alongside us and the Guatemalan people, and it's just been a really exciting time.
So what do you see for the future for Mission Guatemala, and maybe even talk more largely about the people of Guatemala?
Well, let me, Mission Guatemala has, focuses right now on health. The medical clinic was the first thing that started there, and it's I don't know how many thousands of patients a year now go through the clinic. It's very difficult for uh, Mayan, indigenous Mayan Guatemalan people to go to a public health center and sometimes get the respect
Right.
that they deserve there, and so they always get respectful, careful, treatment at our clinic. That's one of the top priorities there. And over the years, that clinic has expanded into an amazing pharmacy, that's there. It doesn't do you any good to realize you're sick, but not be able to have medicine,
Right.
uh, to make a difference. There's a church in North Carolina that helped buy the equipment and continues to sponsor a medical lab there on site so that blood tests and certain tests, can be run. So it's and our amazing doctor, there has started diabetes clubs, expectant mother clubs, things that can kind of help continue to support people during that time. Um, so the healthcare has been a big part of it. We support the education system there. The biggest way in which that's done is this is typical government at work, but but middle school students are required to have a computer class, a keyboarding class, computer class, but the government does nothing to supply the computers, the teacher, or anything like that. So Mission Guatemala has partnered with the middle school, what would be the equivalent of middle school in San Andres, where we're located, and we actually have a computer classroom there, and students come and get regular computer training and learn how to keyboard, how to use a computer. Nutrition is also the other big focus. And right now, that nutritional focus is on infants to children 6 years older or so. We've partnered with a foundation in Dayton, Ohio, out of Dayton, Ohio, for a product called Chispoditos, which is a highly nutritious, food product, that, children can have in a form that they typically eat and drink in Guatemala. We're not trying to introduce something new. It's in a form they eat or drink there, and, provides really high, high nutrition. I mean, the mothers whose children begin on this program come back a few months later and say, "I just can't believe, my child isn't sleeping all the time. They're active, they're doing things, they're, they're," it's just been real exciting. So
So
I,
how did you come up with this? Or who came up with it?
with the nutrition program,
Nutrition program, yeah,
um, that was at one time we had a really strong connection with the Pack Away Hunger organization that's located out of the Indianapolis area there,
right.
because we were doing feeding programs in a lot of the schools, and so they had a food product that we were able to get with them. Churches would do packing programs, and we'd break containers, ship it down, and that. Um, Now the government has actually stepped in and begun providing the snacks and the things that should be done at a lot of the schools. So we dropped that program with Packaway Hunger, but one of their board members was the executive director of the Mateel Institute, who we partner with on this, and we reached out to him, and that was kind of how that whole program began because they were introducing it in several areas in Guatemala. Guatemala is just behind Haiti. Haiti has the worst child malnutrition in the hemisphere. Guatemala's second. And so, this program's really just, made a huge difference there. I think the Mateel family who started the Mateel Foundation, Mateel Institute, I think, Mr. Mateel's funding came out of I think he was one of the early Purina,
I think that's right. Yeah,
folks. So,
yeah.
anyway, but that's how
Well,
that developed.
so if
I'm
folks
always networking, Phil, you know me. I mean, I'm always networking, trying to make connections with people.
you just said the magic word, connections.
Okay.
That's why we call this the belonging exchange.
Okay.
We live too much in terms of, stories of fear and separation and anger, and what about some stories about how people are connected and how we all belong to one another? Maybe we need more of that, and it sounds like that's what Mission Guatemala is doing in many, many places in many ways.
We've got the way that we have done ministry there and, continued to try to do that is, it is all about partnerships. It's all about relationships. We do not pretend to go into a community or village and say, "You need this, get out of our way, we're going to do this for you," because we know better than you do. But we, we'll hear from a community, what a need is. Early early on, uh, Early on, it was a little bit of a struggle because in there's a lot of good, well-meaning people
Yep,
that come to Guatemala, want to help make a difference, start projects, and 18 months later, their doors are closed, they've gone, they've left, and so, the communities there are used to seeing this happen,
yeah,
happen a lot, but, we've been there 16 years.
yeah.
Our supporters continue to support us to be able to make that difference, so, uh right now, there's probably more needs than Mission Guatemala can even begin to address, but people kinda we used to have to seek those out, now people come to us, but it's all about, hearing those needs, and then most of the time, especially on a community development type project, Mission Guatemala kinda operates oftentimes under what we might be more familiar with, like Habitat for Humanity, in that, you know, community, you need to have a little sweat equity in this project too.
Yes.
And so one example I can think of, several years ago in a very rural school, I used to joke you would drive down roads to get to this school that in a movie, when you would go down a road like that, nothing good ever happened at the end of it, it was just kind of one of a scary roads, but they wanted flush toilets,
Wow.
for their schools, and, we said, "We think we can help you do that, but before we even begin to do that, there's going to need to be a septic hole dug. It's gonna need to be so big, our engineers, would tell us how big it would need to be, and, your community has men, they have shovels, and once that hole's dug, you let us know, and we'll come, and complete the project, and, we found, through that the project is far more appreciated. Dads are telling their kids, "You mess up that bathroom at school, you're in big trouble," because he's put a lot of time and ingenuity in that, and there's been other, projects where, ground needs to be leveled before something can be built or whatever, and so communities, turn out to help make that happen,
Well, that's
so
terrific, and
there's
if
good
people
relationships there.
yeah, building rela so if people want to support Mission Guatemala, what's the website? And we'll post it on the blog for this,
Yeah,
podcast.
it's a very clever URL. It's missionguatemala.com. It's
Mm,
.com and not .org.
okay.
But yeah, and there's in the upper right hand corner, like on many nonprofit sites, is a little button that says donate, and um,
So those
we
of
would
you who are
welcome that.
viewing, find the donate button, and, we're going to close out on this, and we'll talk with Tom in another session, but Tom Heaton, thank you, my brother, for your work and for all that you have done and are still doing. Obviously, you're still doing with Mission Guatemala.
Wildly blessed. I am wildly blessed.